Welcome to episode 56 of the Critical Fools podcast. This week, we'll be discussing and reviewing, I forgot what year actually came out, but Knight of
2015.
Cups, 2015 film, Knight of Cups, directed by, I think, one of the most visionary, underrated directors in Terrence Malick of our time. I think he's misunderstood in many ways. So I've seen this film twice. I want to give some backstory. This film's been on my docket to review for a while. I saw it some years back. And here's a personal angle I'll add is that when I first saw it, I felt there was no film at the time that I had seen that really captured how I viewed, I guess, the world. But when I rewatched it, I realized how much I've changed, and I don't necessarily view the world in that same way anymore. So, like, nihilistically. And I will get into like aspects and themes and motifs of the film,
okay.
but I wanted to add that as a backdrop to what my rating will be later, because I've read a lot of the reviews of this film and people often say it's confusing. I don't get it. Like it's too jarring. Like, you know, his style sometimes is hit, sometimes it's missed. Like people like Tree of Life. So here's the counterexample I've read. People really like the Tree of Life, which we did once in a part of this pod, because like even though it was like, you know, very the same stylistic, you can kind of track like the themes and like how it all connected. Here, it seems like I thought I understood the film, but I think a lot of people, this was like, maybe, I don't know if it was too dark or it was just too like, I know you made a comment to me off screen about BoJack, but like, I think it got some of that BoJack treatment of like, hey, you know, I see where this film is going, but I'd rather not go to these places. Even though I felt like BoJack was way deeper and darker.
It was what? No. I said, here's the thing. My exact wording as I was like finishing this film was it felt like a abstract, condensed fusion of BoJack Horseman and Californication.
And I think that's fair because this film was also filmed in LA, I think, for a reason. But anyways, we'll get into that.
They're trying to critique. The other thing that you could talk about is Terrence Malick was definitely trying to critique Hollywood with this movie.
Yeah, and what Hollywood maybe represents now versus maybe the idea.
Even the style of his filmmaking is a complete contrast to typical Hollywood.
Yeah, that is true.
And in many ways, this is sort of a rejection of like Hollywood.
Yeah, so if everyone doesn't know, his style is like there is a loose script, but like he really just gives ideas out to the actors, and then they do scenes, and then all the work is done in his editing process where he pieces together. Right? Yeah, where he pieces together maybe scenes that like they film like towards the end, he puts in the beginning. It's a very fascinating process. I implore anybody to read about it, but it's definitely not your traditional, screenplay. You know, you do the table reading and then you do some rehearsals and then the actors look for direction from the director. Or, there's some like interjection of like I think the character, but like a traditional process of like. That creative team. Well, this is definitely like all the magic per se happens after the fact. So like he has like hours and hours of random footage probably, which we see in this film too, or like it's just what is this cut? Where did he get this? And, but anyways, I'm curious what you, as a first time watcher of this film, like what was your initial emotional takeaway after the film ended? Like what did you sense? What did you feel? Because I think this film is about feeling, or his film.
It was good. I understood what he was going for. I thought the ending was a little abrupt, personally, but I think I kind of understood it at the end, which we'll get into more. It was interesting because, like, you go through all of that, sort of how he deals with pain, right, through all the people he meets, and then at the end, you meet that one person who saves him, and it was really short, and that's kind of where I was like, "Wait, that was it?" I don't know. That was just sort of my vibe with it. But I got kind of where Malick was going for this film.
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't have a... It was good. I think it's because I've seen, like... Californication was an okay show. Yeah. I get what they were trying to critique Hollywood with, like, this pretentious little writer who was, who was the major cast in the show. He was also on the X-Files. I forgot the guy's name. But then BoJack, I think, because I think that's part of it. Is I saw this movie after watching BoJack, and I thought BoJack was just super in depth with what they were going, and it was essentially a summation of what was going on in this movie, just way more extended, way more like in depth.
Yeah, and also I think the difference also is that this film actually has an optimistic take in the end.
Yeah, whereas BoJack is the least optimistic show I've ever seen.
That is true. So yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk about the style too much because we already did a Terrence Malick film before. But going back to the beginning, what did you think of like that relationship between? Because it's a dialogue light film, as like Tree of Life. What did you think of the relationship between him and his brother and his dad? And what do you think that theme? Because I can go what I thought, but like if you want to jump in,
It's just a lot of tension within them, and the issue with this, it's left for you to sort of extrapolate what exactly went on, but obviously it has to do with something with the death of his brother, and maybe that the dad wasn't there enough for them as a kid when they were kids, and so the main character, Christian Bale's brother, I think he feels a lot of resentment towards his dad, and he ends up getting into drugs, getting into bad habits, and even Christian Bale feels resentment towards his brother. And a lot of this has to revolve around like the death of another brother that they never really show nor go into in this movie.
yeah, and the mother's absent too. I thought that was interesting. The
Right.
mother's absent as well. There's I think one random dialogue where like don't speak to her, like don't speak about her, like blah blah blah. So we don't know what happened there.
There's
But
also
you're
some
right.
characters that they talk with that are not one of the like 8 that have their own titles, where you're
Yeah,
not quite sure exactly who they are. And I think that's more the point of what the film is. Like, there's some people that leave a lasting impact, and some people that don't in your life.
that's true, and that's in anybody's life, right?
Yeah,
I think what's interesting is, yeah, I like to me, like I felt like that tension of like you said, the missing characters, like the other brother and the mom. I also got a lot of sense of like the dad had like, especially this is maybe a male thing, but like the aspect of legacy, fatherhood, and sons. Like I felt a lot of that tension too, because it seemed like even Rick, the writer, like it wasn't fitting in his mold of what he thought, maybe like what he thought their life should be. And definitely the other son who I mean that had the drug problem. Like you said, like those scenes where like they're yelling and like the anger, it was definitely very like apparent that like you said, high tension, but also like a warped love of like they still cared about each other. But so, and that's the complexity of family dynamics and stuff. I think one of the underrated themes of this film is actually how relationships are not always like, obviously we all want good ones, but sometimes even like the ones we have through family or through, let's say, lovers can be
like
complex
toxic.
and toxic at times, but just also like multifaceted, which I mean, I
Sure.
like I like that in
I agree
art
with
and
that.
in life. I thought one of my favorite lines in this film was early in the film too, was like when the first girl he's getting involved with was like, you don't want love, you want a love experience or something like that. It was like
Which one was this?
it was the first girl. Um, I think that's the
Oh,
line. I'm
Della.
paraphrasing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
might be paraphrasing, but she was like, "You don't want." I think I really resonate with that line because I think a lot of people that I interact with, they say they want X, Y, Z, but they want XYZ like what like in their what they have what XYZ means in their minds, not really like what the
Mhm.
reality is. And we see that we talked about this for years, right? Like how people go create this reality distortion field around a friendship, a parent, a mentor, or specifically often it's with the intimate relationships. But I thought that was a really like stinger. I was just like, I think a lot of people could look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I thought I wanted this, but I wanted a version of this that only exists in my head.
Right.
And that's something that like I think a lot of people, especially in this age of social media, easy access to, instant content or instant content that feeds you the worldview that you want. We've talked about this offline with other podcasts that we
Mhm.
can't name because they might get all uh bitter and attack. But yeah, I think that was also an interesting aspect early in the film around um like that early relationship, because you do see that Rick is like lost at times because he's struggling with meaning, and he's struggling with like what am I striving for, even though he's in a like supposedly what's hinted to us is like he's a very accomplished talented writer. But yeah, so for the first relationship, one of the title card characters, what did you think of that dynamic? I guess the Della, yeah, rebellious young woman, yeah.
That's a good question. Like, there's this movie was interesting in that there's so many or like there's 8 parts, right? and you're introduced to some characters. I don't quite remember Della quite a bit. I remember, so I'm trying to think back, and I don't remember prior to the brother. So I can't quite comment on that relationship. Remind me a little bit. Maybe it'll refresh.
So
my memory.
she's like the girl that he like kind of just like meets. Like they have like they're in the car. They have the car seat. She's very okay. I will describe her if I were to describe her archetype. Very free spirit. It's not like Natalie. So I think also it's like her. I don't think the actress is well known, right? Because you probably remember Kate Blanchett's character and Natalie Portman's character and the Indian chick. But no, her character's in the really beginning. It's kind of like the way I interpreted it was like, I mean,
give me a scene because I'm trying to remember exactly.
Well, there's a scene in the car where she's just like, free spirit, like, like just like,
Oh yeah.
Short brunette hair.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, like that took me a second. I was like, because he has a lot of interactions with many different women.
So yeah, that's the underrated statement, but okay.
Piece them together something like even that's right. Even at the beginning, right? You're introduced with him, and he's like around with a couple. I think they were like Korean girls. Like
there's a lot of. I will say there's a lot of bimbo.
A lot of partying and hedonism. So like, sorry for not remembering every single person. Yeah, I mean, she was just sort of the rebellious archetype, and I think he was looking for an escape because she wasn't tying down or taking life too seriously, and I think he needed that at that point in his life.
Yeah, this film is. When I rewatch this, I feel like this film is also telling us how we and this is natural. We all know this intuitively. Like we all go through stages in life too, right? Like,
sure,
what you need at one point isn't what you need later, and actually the fact that I have viewed this film differently means that I've also I've gone through different stages.
Evolved a bit. Yeah.
But I thought also now we're talking about the hedonism. What did you think of the hedonism aspects of this film?
I think it's probably true for what goes on with a lot of high profile people in Hollywood and in music. Yeah. I mean, you hear that all the time, especially in music. People who are just out there living very hedonistic lives.
But I think
a lot of people's lives are sort of cut short because of that.
But I think even toned down versions of that, where people are going to certain, let's say, experiences that we've heard of. I'm not gonna say the exact term.
Like what do you mean exactly?
Let's say bathhouses and
people are just living sort of decadent lifestyles and living more immoral lives, I think is what you're going with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying more of because I would put that still in the hedonism camp, right? Where you're going there for this.
Sure, for pleasure.
For the pleasure.
Pleasure is what you're talking about.
I should say that people pleasures of the flesh type of stuff. Yeah. And I think our society and including like you said, high profile, because I think these people also they're not actors, but they're high profile enough in the sense of they have a decent.
They're well known within their arena, and that arena is that industry they're in is known for hedonistic lifestyles.
Exactly. And I think and like I said, because I think one of the aspects of having a lot of characters that we don't know the names of is because it is a culture, right? Those random Ricks, the girls that randomly Rick is.
They're in that scene.
Yeah, they're in that scene, even though we might not know their names, right? And so
but they look, man, this is interesting, or this sort of ties in a bit. But I've listened to a couple podcasts where they talk to former NBA and NFL players, and they'll tell you that there's sort of a core group of women who most of the players that go and party, they end up sleeping with. And it just kind of gets around like that. And so, yeah, there's people who are tied in, who are locked in and part of that community you're just not kind of aware of.
Yeah, because they're not the stars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if Malik.
Yeah, and I've heard that from podcasts and with certain former NBA and NFL guests. And anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I agree. I don't know if Malik was that was specifically his intent, but by how he crafted, especially those aspects of the film with the hedonism and the partying, is that it's not just oh we all it's all celebrities just who know each other. It's literally like you said, it's an ecosystem, right? And it's and it feeds into it, and and then this actually ties in. I'm jumping around a little bit because the film does jump around, but what's his name? The Tonio I know the
Antonio,
actor
the
for it.
Playboy.
The Playboy.
Antonio
Like,
Banderas is who you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. Like he has that scene where he says like sometimes I want strawberry, and like he says different fruits, like the taste of the month, and I was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my god, that is such a. I've heard that in different ways in my
Well, that's
life.
I mean, have you ever heard of J. Cole's song Kevin's Heart? It's
Maybe.
actually a really good song if you've never checked it out. But basically, it's about him and describing the temptation of some dude of cheating or resisting cheating. And he has a line. Shoot, what does it go? He has something like, he's like, basically, I want some, even if the flavor don't taste like you, even if the baker don't bake like you. And I was like, I remember like hearing that line. I was like, that hits a little different. And then when I heard this, that's exactly what kind of came to mind. It's like, yeah, you just want that variety in a way. And so, but this guy, obviously, it's a little different situation because Tonio, he's single and he's just like, yeah, he's like, I just want it all.
Exactly. What did you think of the use of like? Because there's a scene where a guy has a VR headset, and also there's a lot of drugs and alcohol in this film, in the usage of it. I guess. I mean, I think the obvious like analysis is that like we're trying to like the characters, but also we ourselves, we try to warp our realities when we can. I'm curious if there's any other angle you think of.
I think a lot of these people are just trying to either they're using drugs to fill sort of the void of emptiness about like how kind of meaningless a lot of their lives are in a way, and just trying to numb pain from other experiences that they probably have suffered. Yeah. Right. It's like we both follow quite a few comedians. They'll tell you, he's like, yeah, we wouldn't be comedians if we didn't have like some messed up crap that happened in our lives.
Exactly.
They will say that. Like, I don't think I've heard any one comedian who has not said some version of that.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of comedians do say that. But yeah, I thought that scene of the whole like I think that the peak of the hedonism scenes were that aspect, like that party and like that arc of the film. And I think also what's interesting is that even though we're saying Hollywood and it's a critique of Hollywood, I think it trickles down. I think the normal people, even like they do the reality distortion field, and
100%.
And like depending on the inputs you get, like you start viewing the world that way. Whether that's like you're a good-looking woman who gets a lot of attention, or you're a rich dude, or like an NBA athlete, right? Because if you only see this world, that's what you start believing is like the reality. And I think like the whole drugs and even like that small short scene with the VR before VR got big, I think it shows you that like I think the film is trying to tell you that like like even at the people you think are celebrities, they're doing the same thing you're doing. Like they're trying to also escape their realities. And what does that say about us and our society? I was just like, oh, it's so good. I've never seen a director who hates Hollywood as much. Like, and he was. I don't think he cares about what the reviews were, but I probably crossed his mind that like I think I'm gonna get a lot of hate just because of like what I'm doing here. That's why nobody in Hollywood even liked the film. I think one guy wrote like it's trash. I was like, okay, that's cool analysis, dude.
There's a couple of people who had pretty high regards for the film.
I know one of them.
Writers.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to see because I was reading about this because I was kind of curious. Someone from the. It was interesting. Someone from the BBC and the New Yorker.
Of course.
They both called this like one of the top films since 2000.
That's one of the hidden gems of our era. Anyways, moving on to the I guess I think
hold on. So let me ask you this. Out of all of the 8, which one was the most? Which person's interaction with Rick was most impactful to you?
I would say there's impactful to me. I would say
for
sure. You. Let's see. First time watching or the second time watching it?
Let's go first and then second.
I think this the first time I watched it, I would say it was definitely Della, and then the stripper Karen.
Those two hit you the most. Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I guess I have my own theories.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Yeah. What about second time?
Second time, it's judgment and death. Those 2 arcs. the physician Nancy, his ex-wife, and then the last girl.
The ex-wife hit me the most.
Yeah, ex-wife hit me the most.
Actually, yeah, it was probably ex-wife and death to an extent.
Yeah, they hit me the most. I think that speaks to. We'll talk to. I think it speaks to life stages. Because when I first watched it, it was Della and the stripper. Because I told you that line, I still like that line where it's like it's a love experience. And then even when the stripper, right, she says like you can be whatever you want. And I remember thinking like when I was really deep into reading like Nietzsche and like obviously my certain philosophies.
This is Karen. Karen,
the stripper, like her arc really, like her arc really represents like because she
can
says
be whatever you want.
Yeah, and then puts him in the cage.
You can be a god. Yeah, that's so Nietzsche like.
Yeah, you could be like a god. Yeah, and so when I first watched it, I
forgot about the cage.
Yeah, he's styled in there, bro. But yeah, like that. Those two arcs were like
so good.
When I first saw it, because like I think they represented an aspect of me when like I was really like. I still kind of am, but like, blazing against the trail and like, like that kind of like nihilistic view and like
make your own moral code.
Yeah. And like be very like, like I said, like Nietzsche, like climb the mountain, be the only guy on the mountain. But now, like, as I've gotten older, I would say those other two arcs left more of an impact for me. I thought Nancy, that line when she says like, she's speaking to the audience or to herself, like, should I tell him he's still the love of my life? That really like hit me because I think like sometimes
that one hit me. What hit me even more was like, do you wish we had kids or like we had kids? I do. I was like, ooh. I was like, I think it's because of the people that like I know or like they're at that stage in life where it's like, oh yeah, I know some people who it's like who are like married or like newly married or whatever. And I kind of want to ask them if they want to have kids, but I was like, I'd rather not. There might be some stuff that it might be too personal for many different reasons.
And that arc also, something that you've told me in the past that I sometimes always comes back to like timing. Like it's not told to us if it's like it was biological or it was just like the timing of things.
No, we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, and so
we don't know if they're like at that stage they didn't want to, or like I've heard a couple stories of people who've had miscarriages or they just have fertility issues, which is becoming more and more prevalent.
And I think
that especially makes a lot of women feel bad. Not that they should, but it's a touchy subject.
And I think the film leaves it ambiguous for the audience because like it's
supposed to, because it's a Malick film too.
Yeah, but also because I think like it doesn't matter, right? Like in the end, like because of that aspect,
that's just one of the regrets.
Yeah, that she has. He doesn't really say anything, which is interesting too. But I mean, he has a kid later. By the way,
he has a kid.
Yeah, the baby at the end with the.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Forgot about that scene. Yeah.
Because that's the one that's bringing him light, and we'll get to that part. But yeah, it's interesting. So you found Judgment. I guess it's funny. We found the same ones. Yeah.
Judgment, I really did. Well, it's because that's the one with it. Look, everybody else was kind of like an escape. He had his brother issues, but I was like, okay. But then the ex-wife is like, where it hit.
Yeah, Cate Blanchett had great lines. Yeah, go ahead.
And then with Death, what I found interesting, or like probably what that struck me, is like that was his low. That was his absolute low. And that's what you always see. It's kind of like with addicts, right? You have to hit your low before you can finally recover and get into rehab. And I think that's sort of what it is. Freedom or Isabel, I think more literally, like I think there's a surface level and then there's that layer on top. I think literally what happened is he went into some sort of form of rehab, and Isabel's the one who kind of got him there. And he got his life together, and Isabel kind of provided that. It got him through the rough part of his life, and so she was his rock, and that's what pulled him out. And I think that basically, and I don't know if he's trying, like, all of this is sort of a metaphor for just, him just going and trying different drugs, and he finally got into rehab, or if they're actual women, or it could be like a number of different interpretations that you could say.
My interpretation was that in Death, right, he's with Natalie Portman's character, right, and they have a relationship. She's clearly married, right? We learned that, and they have a
but I don't know if all of this is just metaphors for different drug usage.
It could be too, but I think the message though is like that was his low, right? Because like let's say
of course, that's what I just said.
Yeah, let's take it at face value where like she has the
low. He's a homewrecker at that point.
Yeah, he's a homewrecker, but also I think she chose her husband, right? And like and she decided to take care of it.
That line that she used, what did she say? She's like, "We have very few moments or like on this earth, and very few times that we love, and we have to like follow through with them or something like that." I was just like, "Damn!" But she said it way more poetically.
Yeah.
I was just like, "Wow, okay." It's interesting ways of viewing and justifying one's actions.
Yeah, and then yeah, I agree. And then like obviously that, like you said, I agree with you. That was that low. And then but again, I go back to timing, right? Like because he hits that low, that last chapter can happen, right? Where he's able to open himself up to Isabel and then have that child, and like it leaves actually an optimistic note where like the light is coming back in his life. Like the whole like he's woken up from the Knight of Cups, right? Like he's woken up from his slumber in a sense. I like those metaphors too of like
but it's the I mean, what this really reminds me of is the whole Bubbles arc in The Wire. I mean that's why. I mean, you remember Bubbles, one of the most heartbreaking characters in that show. But
redemption.
I mean, it took him. His death was the lowest when he accidentally poisoned the person he cared most about. That was so sad how they and then eventually like he was able to get help. Fighting through that the death, if you will.
Yeah, because as much as like he has a lot of drug use, it's like it's never really it's implied that he uses it a lot, but like not to the like not like guy in the street shooting up. But it seems like he's almost addicted to like that easy life, right? And that he has to hit that rock bottom, like homewrecker and maybe potentially losing a kid, to realize like I have to.
You got to change it up.
Yeah. And then again going back to time, because we don't really know how Isabel enters his life, but he's ready to receive that, right? Like we often talk about, right? Like you can give advice, but if they're not ready to hear it, like it doesn't matter. You could say you're talking.
You can't do anything until they want to change.
It's like, and that's what I like about the film too. Like if he had gone like Isabel had appeared in his life, let's say, like earlier in his story arc, like it probably, like you said, it would have been like talking to a wall, Mm-hmm. So he was just ready because of. So to me, I should tie it together. That really impacted me was it was death, and then right after like the connection with Frieda, like it was just so that was really like cool, like in a sense that was cool.
It was good,
but Judgment I would say is still probably my favorite. I think that was probably my favorite one, slightly favorite over it. But those like
because that was the one that he actually went through with, and something and things just didn't work out. Yeah, but it was great. It was really interesting when you said, "Yeah, you're still in my life, but I don't think I should tell you." I was like, "Oh, that hurts a little bit." Like hearing her say that.
Yeah, and that speaks to like people's stories that like I mean I haven't been a part of those, but like you read about them where like whether that's to online or books, right? That like people like they recognize that like even though they have a good life, like there was a magical moment, whether that's like a lover they had in World War I, World War II, or whatever, but like. And they can't, that's like still like they would still say deep down. Obviously, they don't say it out loud. Like she says that she keeps it in her head, right? Because she's maybe moved on, but she can't say that to her like new partner if she has one, right? But like sometimes,
I was telling you some before we started this pod about like someone we knew and their story with the person she really loved had family pressure for her to marry somebody else.
Yeah. So yeah, it connects.
Yeah.
Because like. You can't, like we've talked for a long time, right? You can't always control how you feel about things. And I think that's something that this film also explores. Like you said, with even Natalie Portman's character, like she had that line that was, I don't remember.
Yeah, that was a good line.
But when you said it, I was like, oh, I remember she did say that. I was like, yeah that's, woo, okay. But that is an interpretation, right? Because we often forget that like how we interact with strangers. Or
this was it. We said that we like just because we took vows. Doesn't we took vows in love, and if we're not in love, then that doesn't mean anything. So we're not technically breaking vows or something. I was like, wow, the justification, people. That was it. I was like blown away with like the line, the script they came up with some of the lines was fantastic.
Well, no,
I was like, I think that's how some people. Well, maybe not the script, the lines that they improvised, whatever, the lines that they ended up saying in this film. I was just like, you really captured how some people really do feel, though.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's his style, like so that line probably came from Natalie Portman, so it's just interesting.
Sure. That's good. Yeah, I don't want to know where Portman's head was at that point.
Yeah, because it's almost like how even when we were kids we did improv. What I've read is that the style is kind of like there is a prompt, but like from there the actors have to carry it.
It's kind of like when we did Coherence, same thing.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, which is interesting because like I'm not saying every film has to be that way, but I'm glad that there are certain directors that do that because you see that it's definitely a much more creative process in the sense of like I feel like only that actor in that moment could have maybe said that line, which says a lot. So I don't want to psychoanalyze Natalie Portman's character, but that is interesting, right?
Like, oh, that well, but a lot of times, a lot of these people get into the character that they're playing.
That's true too.
And so you're like sort of projecting what you think they would be saying.
By the way, I want to share this little trivia, but before we get deeper, just to ease up the serious talk. Ruxin from The League, he has a cameo in this film. He's a small scene. Yeah, go. You can watch it. He has a small scene. One, he's wearing shades. One, he's wearing shades, and he's like holding. He's
at one
of
the parties.
Yeah, at the parties. Yeah, and then he actually has like an item, an ice, I think. And then there's another scene where he's just his head's kind of cut off, but he's right next to Tonio. Yeah. So if I
wasn't paying attention that closely to them.
No, so like it threw me off because the first time I was just like, okay, like there's no way, like he would have more of a like not prominent, but like I would be able to see more easily. But then like I looked it up. Also, the second time I watched, I was like, I had to look. I was like, no, he looks too much like Ruxin, and it is him. It's the actor. Yeah.
Right.
I was just like, that's crazy. I forgot.
You want to know something that's even crazier because I have the wiki page on. So, you know, the Freedom character, her name's Isabel. The actress's name who plays her is actually Isabel.
Ooh,
that's interesting.
That's a model.
Sorry, that was just a random aside.
It's a model too. Yeah, nice. But she's insane.
Person that I want to ask you about. Why do you think Helen's placement was chosen right after his ex-wife?
Oh, she's an important character too. She's kind of like this. It's a weird like platonic friendship type of thing. Even though
was it platonic?
Well, I think he wanted it to be more, but she said that line like, I'm
tired of ruining dudes' lives, and I was like, wow.
We're not going further. So I think he did like
that was interesting.
This guy was a dog the whole film. I don't think he wanted it to be platonic. So I think he was given the rejection. No, it was. So to answer the question on your placement, I mean, I want to get your thoughts on her character because it was actually fascinating. I would say. I think the placement was that like as you said, like for a lot of people, and like now that I've talked to more people about their long COVID breakups, it seems like specifically one of my gay coworkers was telling me the same, like, yeah, like I dated somebody for like a long time, and I don't have that experience like 8 years or something like that. He was just like, yeah, like you need like a break and like you need like a time where
she probably got out of something.
Just be. I'll quote him like just be single for a while. And so when I think of that character, I think like even though obviously our main protagonist wanted to get in there, I think like it was a moment where like he was forced to just be like not like with, even though he reverted back right after that pursuit dies out, he goes back to some hedonism. But for a while, he was just like friends with her. It seemed like, I mean, maybe he was trying to get in there, but like she was saying no. And so that kind of maybe forced him a little bit to be with somebody, not just for like, pleasurable reasons, like pleasurable in the flesh, not like emotionally. Yeah. I'm curious what you, I
couldn't quite make sense. I knew she was placed there for a reason. Why after his wife, I couldn't quite figure out.
The ex-wife, I think it's because those things are usually, unless it's like a nothing marriage, like those are usually like, especially if they're like multi-year or any multi-year relationship, they're pretty like severe. Like you gotta like, your life has changed because of that, right? I remember reading once where a girl wrote like, it was like a post, I think it was a Reddit post, but she was saying like, if you think about it, if you're really like, let's say it's not like just a casual dating thing, but you really were in a relationship, like, and you really had good moments and bad, and then probably why you broke up. But like that person knows you in a way that many people don't, right? Because it was intimate, right? And she said something at the end, like it was interesting. She said, like, and if you think about it, I won't even be invited to that person's wedding. I mean, not wedding, funeral, probably, because it's like an ex that you don't like. But it's interesting because for a moment, like you knew them really well, and I was just like, yo, that is like good. I was like, and so like I think so. Go back to the film.
Knew that person who died better than most of the people who were attending that wedding.
Exactly. That was the point. Yeah. Because when you're really intimate, even though let's say you only knew them for that period of their life,
when you know things, look, when you get to that point, you open up, thing more deeply things about that person that most people are going to the wedding. They only knew them at a different level, more surface level.
Yeah, or unless they were like such a tight, like but that's a
Well,
small group. That's a small group, right? And I
most
was
people
just like that.
I
I
mean,
was
at the funeral.
yeah, I was just like, that's actually like
That's a good point.
that was really poignant. Like, yeah. And so sorry, going back to the film. Go ahead, yeah.
So was that a little profound?
Yeah, and I was like, kind of like, wow, like, you can find some gems online still. I was like, not just the cliches of like, I grind, I work hard, I win. You know? Yeah.
Not what is it? Ideas are nothing. Execution means everything.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously there was a caveat, right? Like if you're just like, it's just a fling or you're just dating like casually, like it's not the same, right? But if it's like a serious relationship of multiple years, like yeah, that's a definitely valid perspective.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And going back to the film, I think like that his first wife, like I think that was like a important relationship for him and to her too, apparently. And like it just didn't work
Yeah,
out.
they're married.
Yeah, and it was like
If you don't have an important relationship and you get married, or like with a certain person, but you marry that person, that's something's
well, I
wrong.
mean, we've
Something's
seen the stories where people get married in 2 months, so
wrong. That blows my mind when you see,
and then they get divorced.
then you wonder why.
Exactly. Or the people that get married quick and they last like a lifetime. That's like incredible too.
Well, yeah, there's also arranged marriages that some end up working. I think from what I've read, it's about like the same rate, but of like success divorce as like normal, or sorry, not saying normal, typical Western style marriages that are more like you meet someone and then you choose.
Yeah. So that's that. I mean, that's why I like the film. There's a lot of ideas, but yeah, that was like I think to wrap up the Helen and the Nancy, I think her name was, like that arc, like jump, is because like you have this meaningful relationship where it's really like from all what we can gather is profound, and then he's just by luck, I think, in another relationship, but it's not like very like sexual in nature. Like it is there's an innuendo, but like it doesn't go that far.
Mhm.
And that ended up being good for him, even though he reverted back and then he had to hit rock bottom and then rise again. It's very biblical in many ways, right? So
Right. No, it definitely was. By the way, I did find it interesting that both his wife and the stripper were both Australian.
yeah, that was.
I
I don't
don't know
know.
if you.
There's more to it. I know they were Australian. I don't know if there's more to it or there's something, or just casting. Yeah.
It could be just casting, but I was like, this is oddly interesting. I was like, because I don't know a ton of Australian actresses.
So did you like a film where Christian Bale barely talks? I feel like that's one of the reasons people liked it.
I don't mind Christian Bale. Personally,
I think he's a good actor, actually. I know he's
I
controversial.
thought a lot of like he had some very good non or like what do you call it? Just body language really in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is a film where it's really like
It's all body language.
It's innuendo. It's the look. It's like the face. Yeah, it's even how he touches objects. Right when he's playing with that ball, like
yeah, no, he was good.
did you? So I'm curious. Did you like this more than Tree of Life, or you like Tree of Life more?
Yeah.
Oh, you like Tree? Wait, which one? Sorry,
I like this movie more.
Tree of Life was the one that everybody loves, dude.
I'm the biggest fan of True of Life, to be honest.
The
Like,
fact that more people like Tree of Life, I think, says a lot about our society. Like people who view films, right? Because they wanted something that's very like digestible and cool and happy, and like even though I think this film was happy in the end, it's just people miss it. Like it's just
well, how do you miss it? More like and I'll get to some of my criticisms later, but yeah, it was good overall. I thought
okay, so
as usual with typical Malick films. Oh well, from the two I've seen, Tree of Life and this one, incredible cinematography.
So going back to Judgment real quick, because I'm curious in general, and also this is a general aspect of question for the film. Like, I guess were there what moments for you and why did they resonate with you emotionally?
I don't even know if resonate. It's just like I guess I could empathize was the line of like having kids.
Or why did it hit you? I guess I'm curious. Like, why did it even hit you in general?
Yeah. Like I've known people who've had like miscarriages and things like that, or things haven't worked out. And then I even like heard an interview about someone who said like their biggest regret was like not having kids. I was like, oh, it just sounds so like lonely. So sad. And I could just sense that in her. Like that was definitely one of her biggest regrets was not having kids with Rick. And I don't know, for some reason that did hit quite a bit. And then obviously the other line of her saying that sort of questioning herself, should I tell him that I'm still really in love with him, even though like we're at this weird state. Like, I mean, those were two where it's like, dang, like that's tough. That's all I could think of. Like, that's tough.
Yeah, and I guess with the other arc, the Natalie Portman one, I should say her actual character's name.
Well, that was his low. That's
Elizabeth.
why. Like clearly, and so I think that's why it hit different. It's his low. He's in a situation where you're home wrecking, and it's just like, damn. I was like, you're really gonna. I was like, there's one thing to be to lead a life of infidelity. It's another to leave a life of, just womanizing. It's another to like be like, man, you're gonna get involved with a married woman, tell her to leave her husband, like do all this. Like that is your low. For sure.
It didn't work out.
Yeah, like that was the other thing. It didn't work out. And there was a pregnancy, and then which he's like, I don't know if it's his or yours. I was like,
oh, that was a crazy line, dude. And that's why she had to do her thing. Yeah.
Well, it's implied, but you don't really know what choice she made.
Yeah, I think. Where do you think? What choice do you think she made?
I think she got an abortion.
That's what I think too. Yeah, because in the end, it's implied. Like he doesn't end up with like his low, and also with Isabel if she's still in his life, right? That's the truth too, right? I know we talked about this many times in the past. So like sometimes you have to let that go for you to move on. Yeah.
Dude, that was wild.
And then he has a kid later, a little baby.
Yeah. My big issue with this is like it was just the ending was a little too abrupt for me in abstract. Like I get where they were going. It was just like, oh, okay, that's it. It's ended. Like it's implied that he had a kid. I was like, but you hit a couple tennis balls.
Yeah.
And then you have a kid. It's like that's that.
There was a time skip. But anyways, before we get into your critiques, there is this one scene that's interesting that I think is talking to like a certain culture of our society, but also Hollywood, where he's hanging around the stripper girl, and then they hang out at this old guy's mansion, and he's just showering her with gifts. I'm curious what you thought of that sequence, huh?
And he had a ton of different. What was going on?
I think that was a critique of like certain. So when I saw that that scene personally the second time, it reminded me.
The flying beautiful women out.
It reminded me of the Woody Allen. His name is Woody Allen, right? His controversy with like,
Oh,
he was like dating like 17-year-olds at age 40 something. By the way, that's in my docket. We'll get to that eventually.
What?
I have a Woody Allen film in my docket about that.
This is why, like, I need to balance you out a little bit. Very digestible film next week. It's gonna be creepy.
Well, my next pick is very digestible. Are you kidding me? Michael Clayton. That's a very digestible. You're gonna love that film, dude. Fast paced, witty, great lines. George Clooney at his finest.
Oh,
you're gonna like it. Trust me. You're gonna like it.
All on the docket too.
Yeah, those back to back. I don't know what you're complaining about, dude. So I gotta then put in my.
Man, I can't wait to hear your Mr. Bitcoin shirt talking about margin call.
Even though the market's collapsing at the moment, at the time of filming this, maybe when I post this online,
it's still $28,000 overvalued.
Yeah. Hopefully, by the time this is published, it's 100K. Anyways,
Did you see that tweet? Sorry for the slight tangent. I couldn't believe that when Peter Zeihan was like, Bitcoin, rough market, but it's still $28,000 overvalued.
Yeah, Peter Zeihan. Maybe you should interact with people not in your social circle, dude. Anyways,
not the State Department.
Yeah, you're disconnected as hell, dude. But we'll get to your critiques of the film. Yeah, because there's scenes that we obviously didn't touch upon because like they're placed in there, I think for a reason, but like it's just hard because there's a lot of like scenes, like there's random scenes where like he's just with models, right? Like around them and having sex with them. Like it's just, we get it. But that particular scene stuck out because it reminded me of like the whole. I think it's even where he's hanging, like the Karen is getting all the gifts from the older
What did you say? Your critique was just with like these weird.
Not critique. I'm just saying. I think what he was trying to say there is that like in Hollywood, in our society, this happens a lot, and that we don't always talk about it. Yeah.
Well, it also happens with some of these IG models that get flown out to like Dubai.
Yeah, there is a what is the term? There is a worship of beauty, right? Yeah. So I just want to touch upon that before you get into your critiques and then final thoughts, and then.
I mean, I'm ready for final thoughts. I think we've touched upon most of it.
All right, let's go to your final thoughts and critiques.
Anything else you really wanted to speak upon?
No, I'm pretty good. I think we captured it a lot.
I mean, it's an interesting setup of like 8 different people that they really left an impact, and obviously they were placed there for certain reasons throughout the dude's life. Thought the acting was really good. I like the direction and sort of, I would say, like dreamlike state that Malick typically directs with his films. I will say at the beginning, and I get where he was going, a lot of the edits and cuts just made me feel disoriented. Like for a second, I thought I was about to have a seizure at the beginning because he's like parting, it's cutting. It's like fish angle lenses, wide angle lenses. I'm like, you're doing a lot right now.
Before you get into your final thoughts, sorry, what did you think of the how he filmed LA? We both built in LA, so I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
I thought he did it justice. It was fine. So, I mean, he captured both the yuppie and like Hollywood like lifestyle areas they live in, and then they went down to like more Skid Row area, and I was like, that's a cleaned up version of Skid Row.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Talking about too.
Yeah,
like you go, like I was like, this is like, that's like Skid Row.
They got some high profile actors. They can't put them in danger, dude.
Yeah. I was like, there's like 3 homeless people there. My dude, there should be like 1,000 lined up on the street in tents.
All right, let's continue.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any issue with necessarily how he filmed it, or like portrayed Los Angeles. Some nice areas, obviously, like they didn't film like the rougher parts. They weren't going down into Bompton or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, you film the areas where he's at, probably Malibu. Places like that, which is if you're a Hollywood, elite, you're going to live in these areas of Los Angeles. I thought it was a little stereotypical that the robbers was it like a white dude and a Mexican, or were they milk Mexican? I couldn't quite tell.
No, it was definitely a white dude, and I think
it was Mexican.
Maybe, or light skinned black dude. I can't remember. I remember the white dude though. He was hella white. Yeah, he was like a junkie. It seemed like because they really needed the money. Yeah. Go ahead.
And he's like, you don't have any cash? You don't have anything here? He's like, no, I'm just minimalist. Basically, he's like what he said. He's like, they took like $700 from him.
Yeah. Well, that's what it speaks to, like the aspect of like he, at that point of his life, he also didn't have like, I think even the stuff he had, like it's funny, his character didn't have like a lot of, some people fill out like stuff like material, like to fill the void with material. He didn't have that addiction. Right? His was the woman. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Anyway. So to my beginning, I just at the start of the film, I felt very disoriented, and I get it. He tries to do these dramatic shots and interesting angles and lenses. Like when he has like the dogs, swimming in towards the ball and trying to grab it. Like he has like weird angles that he uses and all this. I'm like, dude, I mean, I get it, and you're trying to be very artistic in filmmaking, but some of it is it's a bit much, I would say, in terms of some of his choices. I'm trying to think. I thought the cinematography was great. I just didn't like some of the sporadic dreamlike or like choices that he kind of used that made me that just kind of here's the thing. It kind of felt like my senses were getting overwhelmed with a couple sequences and shots, which I'm like, sometimes less is more. Is sort of like my thoughts on that. And I tend to like some sort of creative touches. It's just Malick, his creative touches are a bit of the norm for his sort of style. Trying to think what else. I also thought the ending was a bit abrupt for my liking. I would have liked a couple more shots, maybe a couple more like dialogues or interactions between the two of them to sort of portray more, because that just felt, especially with like everyone else was sort of drawn out, or they went a little more in depth. And with Isabel, there wasn't a lot of that. They didn't quite say like how like he got rescued or sort of imply that. You're just there.
Just a couple of tennis ball scenes.
I was just like, okay.
Maybe that was his rehab. It was a rehab in a tennis court.
Yeah, no, I was like, all right there.
Maybe she was the nurse. Okay, continue.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, I think it's just the person who like got him in a quote unquote rehab and really started putting him on a better path in his life. Well, that was sort of my interpretation from it. A lot of this I sort of just relate to sort of like a drug abuser kind of metaphors because that's what it seemed like to me. But yeah, overall, I thought the film was good. Like I said, I really enjoy a lot of the dramatic cinematography that Malick tends to use in his movies because I just like cinematography in general and his choices. I just wish he had kind of cleaned up some of those things that I sort of addressed. But overall, I like this more than Tree of Life, personally. And I'd give this film, I was debating between an 8 and 8.5. Because of some of the creative liberties he took and how ambitious he was trying to be with this, I'd give him an 8.5.
Well, you could have gone with 8 or 8.5. It would still been higher than Tree of Life. So,
what did I rate Tree of Life? 7.5? 7?
Yeah, 7.5. I guess it's my turn. So it was my pick. Obviously, when you said those list of shows in the beginning, they're all shows that I liked anyway. So,
this film, I was like, this is like Hollywood criticisms with like more meta, philosophical tones to it. I was like, no wonder Chris chose this movie.
Yeah, this is definitely my type of film. Like, I like meta, I like metaphor, I like ambiguity. I mean, that's how.
References to, and the taking of lines from great works from like the 1600s.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Hold on, before you begin. Yeah. Here it is. Knight of Cups directly quotes John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress, 1678, and of course Mark Frost's Twin Peaks, and Hymn of Pearl by Acts of Thomas. Yeah, of course. No wonder you.
Yeah, wisdom in the ancient old literature, of course, always. But I think for us in modern, let's say, interpretation, like I think it's very adept to see, like to your point, unlike Tree of Life, I think this film ages better because of what's happened in our society since this film was made. Actually, like now people are talking about distortion fields in social media. Now people are talking about like why do I feel like, we're both big fans of Jonathan Haidt. Like he's now becoming more popular about his thoughts around, hey, why is anxiety, depression up? And I think Malick was the precursor. I actually think that's why I think he's a visionary. He made a film that was in many ways just like, BoJack as well. Who made it? That was a TV show. But like it is touching upon, especially the timing. I give credit for the timing too. It wasn't like, oh, he made it now. He made it in 2015 before it was really popular to talk about it.
In 2014.
Huh?
Like I said, I think most of the shots were taken in 2014.
Exactly, but way before a time where like now this is in the mainstream discourse. So I give credit there.
When IG was in its infancy.
Yeah, and he was already feeling trends in the community he's probably aware of. Because unfortunately, as much as we can say social media has been good, we know that a lot of social media culture comes from LA.
It's been terrible.
Okay. Look,
in many ways.
Yes, I agree.
Look at Haidt's work. You can talk about depression amongst preteen and teen girls. It's not great. It is skyrocketing.
Yeah. And I think, and so when I first saw the film, which was probably 2017, 2018 around, like that was only like some years removed from like, the initial viewing. And I was like, wow, like at the time I thought it was like the film that like represented like everything I thought kind of perceived the world. Obviously things have changed since the 4 years I've seen it. Like, I mean, I saw, me, like at one point, like I still say these things, right? Like I saw like a society that was very sterile, that was like, that was more obsessed with fornication of the mind than true enlightenment, and
that's still kind of true.
True, but in this sense,
you were just talking about this, homie. You're just saying how, and you were getting mad. You're like, how how many people I recommend Atlanta to, and you're like, it's too real for them.
Well, they don't watch it. They say, I love the quote. I hear it's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, but I don't know if I can get around to my version. That's my white, like, that's the code for like, yeah, I'm not watching that. Like, yeah, that's too much. Yeah.
Well, what you say though?
Well, because I say that about Ozark. I'm like, I hear it's good, but I'm not watching it. Like, I can't. I got time.
Ozark is, and I've seen it. Ozark is nowhere near the unique creative level. It's just it's another show that has some good acting, and it's a drug related show, which you've seen plenty of. So I wouldn't. It's nothing special.
Yeah.
Although
But
they're apparently like at each, basically like how they have the show, and I've missed this, is like after like the opening scene, they'll bring the tile card of Ozark, and it has a big O, and then it has like a cross, and then it has 4 objects in there, and apparently those are supposed to relay something because they're new to every episode.
oh
But
wow, I didn't know that.
yeah,
That's cool, actually.
but
The
I haven't like been in depth or cared enough to really look in that deeply into it.
Yeah, so what I wanted to finish up was that like in the 4 years since I've seen the film, I think what I've changed my perception is that obviously I'm older. Also, I saw more like I think it hit me more like the stages this time than the last time, and also like certain like arcs hit me more this time than like I mentioned earlier. But also just interacting with people like the last post-COVID world, it's not post-COVID, but post-2020 world, where I see now like we're all in the same. Okay, I'm generalizing here, but we're all in the same boat, and like we're all in many ways on. Okay, we're not maybe hitting those lows like this character, but like we're all like trying to figure things out. And I think how we handle loss, how we handle challenges, how do we handle success, even like I think we're all figuring that out. And the more people I meet now, especially in this city that I'm in, like it's very abrupt to me that like people like you think you're doing either well or bad. Either way, like even if you're on one spectrum or the other, like, oh, I'm doing terrible, my life's garbage, or I'm doing great, I'm all happy, or I think I'm happy. There is like an interesting like not shallowness, but like an interesting human not despair. I don't know what the right word is, but like a human consciousness in this set. Because like I meet people who are like super. I was just telling a buddy of mine yesterday, like, I met like a kickball teammate that like, he's really cool. Like, most people when they talk about him, they just say he's really friendly, nice. But then I've had some one-on-ones with him where I can tell he's super insecure about certain things. And I think we all are insecure about certain things. And I just sometimes I gotta pinch myself, remind myself that like we're human, we gotta have compassion. Versus when I was 4 years ago, I mean, I was knee deep in reading the darkest philosophies I could because, I mean, I'm addicted to that stuff. So I'm not going to say I'm not. Like, I love the meta analysis and like, and even I love even phrases I just say. Like, I love saying like the fornication of the mind. Like, come on, dude. Like, I'm not going to change, dude.
Reading about the cathedral.
Oh yeah, let's not go there. Yeah, and but like I just I mean I exist in the niche. I enjoy it too much. But I will say like the danger of that is you create again. When I just criticize people have a warped reality of the world, that could still distort your reality as well.
Sure.
And so I think I really this time also even the freedom arc really like let me see that like this film because how I remember the film was different than when I rewatched it because I kind of forgot about Isabel. Now I'm going to remember more prominently in the going forward. So for me, the rating is just 9 out of 10. One of the great films that I've seen in the last 15 years. Maybe 9 means a lot. So, but it's not a masterpiece, even though I would have said 10 out of 10 4 years ago, because I think you're right. They could have elaborated more on that last arc, which I think is actually really important for people. Even like just because you hit rock bottom doesn't mean there's a way out. Yeah.
But then after that, I was like, "This is it." There was like a couple tennis scenes.
It should have been more. It should have been more. I'm okay with another 10 minutes of running time for this film. Yeah, I felt like he was too fixated on the 2-hour mark. Maybe he took the criticism of Tree of Life too severely, where it was too long. That was one of the critiques.
You could have 5 more minutes to have some dialogue chopped in, where like you explain a little bit more, or have some like she. I kid you not. I don't think she had one line.
I don't think she had a line. Well, it was also a model that was casted, so I don't think they wanted her to speak, but they could have casted somebody else.
Yeah, then obviously that's a pitfall of your film.
And I think
the 2 that we remembered, they had some dagger lines.
And maybe I'm misinterpreting, but I think the chapter with the dad and brother could have been before the rebellious woman, because I think it would have flowed if it was just all the different women.
It could have been, but I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, well, I'm devil. I'm a stickler first. So I have my opinions. I say like I'm very like what's the term, like I like not like I have a rubric, but I really don't. It's all good. But anyways, 9 out of 10, and yeah, I think this is definitely worth a watch, and I think it's a film that I know over time I've seen more people talk about this film like on YouTube. So like I know it's like a hidden gem for people because it's like people were like, oh, it was bad, but then because of the they read it on Rotten Tomatoes, but then they watch it, and especially if you're at a certain point of like some life perspective, you're like, it's actually not bad, like as bad as some people say it is.
Someone put, I think it might have been the dude from the New Yorker. He said this is an old man's film, not a young man's, and I was just like chuckling.
Oh yeah, I've always been an old man at heart. So, oh sorry, young at heart but old in the mind. But I'll leave it at that, and like and subscribe. I'll go. You can edit it.
I'm sorry, I just feel like I have the flow for it. Yeah, if you enjoyed our commentary on this week's episode, please like and subscribe to our channel, and let us know if you have any recommendations for films you think we should review. Go ahead and write those down in the comments, and we'll be sure to take a look. Anyway, until next week, and we're out.